The dust kicked up from the Oregon Trail settled around Laura Ainsley's worn boots as she stood outside the land office in Centralia, Washington Territory, watching the clerk shake his head for the third time that week. Behind her, pressed against the weathered boards of the general store, her 4 children waited with faces that had learned too young how to mask disappointment. It was September of 1878, and the timber town nestled in the shadow of the Cascade Mountains had seemed like a promise of new beginnings when she had arrived 6 months ago. But now, Laura was starting to wonder if some promises were only meant for certain kinds of people. "Madam, I told you already," the clerk said, not unkindly but with the firmness of a man who had repeated himself too many times. "A woman alone with 4 mouths to feed and no husband, well, that is just not the kind of risk the bank is willing to take on a property loan. Maybe if you had family here, or if you were willing to consider remarriage to someone with established means." Laura felt the familiar burn in her throat, but kept her chin level. She had cried enough tears for Thomas, her husband who had succumbed to pneumonia during their first winter in Washington Territory. She had cried for the life they had planned, for the farm they were going to build, for the future that had crumbled like dry leaves. But tears did not feed children or put a roof over their heads, and the small savings Thomas had left were nearly gone. "Thank you for your time," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. She turned away from the land office and walked back to where her children stood. Benjamin, at 12 years old, was trying so hard to be the man of the family, his jaw set in a way that reminded her painfully of Thomas. Sarah was 10, with braids the color of wheat and eyes that saw too much. The twins, Michael and Matthew, were only 6, still young enough to find wonder in the massive timber wagons that rumbled through town but old enough to understand when their stomachs were empty. "No luck, Mama?" Sarah asked quietly. "Not today, sweetheart," Laura replied, smoothing her daughter's hair. "But we will figure something out. We always do." Benjamin kicked at the dirt. "I could get more work at the mill. They need boys to sweep up the sawdust and carry water." "You are already working yourself to the bone," Laura said firmly. "You should be in school, not spending every afternoon in that dangerous place." "School does not put food on the table," Benjamin muttered, but he did not argue further. They made their way back to the boarding house, where Laura had managed to secure a tiny room in exchange for cooking and cleaning. It was temporary, the landlady had made that clear, just until Laura could find something more permanent. But permanent required money, and money required opportunities that seemed to slip through her fingers like water. That evening, as Laura served dinner to the boarding house residents, she overheard a conversation that made her hands still over the serving platter. 2 ranchers were discussing a widow from up north who had been turned down by 3 different suitors in as many weeks. "She came with baggage, that is what I heard," one man said around a mouthful of potatoes. 3 little ones from her first marriage. "Men around here want to start fresh, not take on another man's responsibilities." "Can you blame them?" the other replied. "It is hard enough making a living without adding extra mouths to feed right off the bat." Laura set down the platter with more force than necessary, earning a startled glance from both men. She retreated to the kitchen, her face burning. Was that how people saw her? As damaged goods, as a burden with her 4 children trailing behind like anchors? Later that night, after her children were asleep in the cramped room they shared, Laura sat by the window and watched the stars emerge over the mountains. She thought about the advertisements she had seen in the newspaper, men seeking brides through correspondence. But those men wanted young women, unencumbered women, women who could work a farm and bear children without the complication of a ready-made family. She was only 28, but she felt ancient, worn down by grief and struggle and the constant, gnawing worry about her children's future. The next morning brought no better prospects. Laura spent the day doing laundry for the hotel, her hands red and raw from the lye soap and hot water. Benjamin came home from the mill with a bruise on his arm that he tried to hide, and Sarah quietly mentioned that the school teacher had asked why the twins had been absent so many days. Laura knew why. Their shoes were falling apart and she could not afford new ones. The shame of sending them to school with bare feet in September was too much to bear. By the end of the week, Laura had made a decision born of desperation. She would attend the town social on Saturday night. She had avoided such gatherings since Thomas died, unable to face the pitying looks and awkward conversations. But she needed to make connections, to find someone who might give her a chance at work or, if she was being honest with herself, to find a man who might be willing to accept her circumstances. The thought made her stomach turn, but her children's needs outweighed her pride. Saturday evening arrived with a chill wind that promised an early autumn. Laura dressed carefully in her one good dress, a deep blue calico that Thomas had bought her 3 years ago. Sarah helped her pin up her dark blonde hair, and for a moment, looking in the cracked mirror, Laura could almost see the hopeful young bride she had been before life had worn her down. "You look beautiful, Mama," Sarah said softly. "You are kind, sweetheart," Laura replied, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Now, you are in charge while I am gone. Make sure the twins wash their faces before bed and do not let Benjamin stay up reading by candlelight. We cannot afford to waste candles." The church hall was bright with lantern light when Laura arrived, the sound of a fiddle spilling out into the darkness. She hesitated at the door, gathering her courage before stepping inside. The hall was crowded with townspeople, farmers and loggers and their families, all taking advantage of the rare opportunity for socializing. Laura recognized a few faces from the boarding house and the shops where she did her marketing, but she felt like an outsider looking in on a world that no longer included her. She had been standing near the refreshment table for perhaps 20 minutes, trying to look approachable but not desperate, when Martha Crawford approached. Martha ran the dry goods store with her husband, and she had always been cordial to Laura. "Laura, how lovely to see you here," Martha said warmly. "It has been too long since you have joined us for these gatherings." "I have been busy with the children," Laura replied, grateful for the friendly face. "Of course, 4 little ones must keep you running from morning to night," Martha said. "Have you met Harold Peterson? He owns the farm just north of town, quite a successful operation." "Harold, this is Laura Ainsley. She has been living at the boarding house since last spring." Harold Peterson was a thick-set man in his 40s with a prosperous look about him and eyes that assessed Laura with the same calculation he might use when judging livestock. "Mrs. Ainsley," he said with a nod. "Martha mentioned you were recently widowed. My condolences." "Thank you," Laura said, trying to warm to him. He was established, clearly doing well. Perhaps this was exactly the kind of man she should be considering. They made small talk for several minutes, Harold dominating the conversation with details about his farm and his plans for expansion. Then, inevitably, he asked about her children. "4, you said. How old?" 12, 10, and 6-year-old twins, Laura replied, watching his expression shift. "That is quite a brood," he said carefully. "All from your first marriage." "Yes, all Thomas's children," she said, feeling a defensive edge creep into her voice. Harold nodded slowly. "Well, Mrs. Ainsley, you seem like a capable woman, but I will be frank with you. I am looking for a wife to help run my household, but I am not looking to take on a ready-made family. I have my own legacy to think about, my own children to have someday. I am sure you understand." The rejection was delivered politely, but it stung nonetheless. Laura excused herself as gracefully as she could and retreated to a corner of the hall, blinking back tears. So this was how it would be. She was acceptable as a woman, but her children made her unacceptable as a wife. The evening continued in much the same vein. She was introduced to William Harper, a widower who seemed interested until he learned about the children, and suddenly remembered he needed to speak with someone across the room. Robert Chen, whose family ran the restaurant in town, was kind but made it clear he was looking for a wife who could work in the family business without the distraction of small children. By the time the social was winding down, Laura felt hollowed out, scraped raw by the accumulation of polite rejections and pitying glances. She was preparing to leave when a commotion near the door caught her attention. A group of men had just entered, clearly fresh from the trail, their clothes dusty and their faces weathered. They moved with the easy confidence of men accustomed to hard work and open spaces, and Laura found herself drawn to watching them despite her exhaustion. One man in particular stood out from the group. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of storm clouds. There was something solid about him, something steady in the way he carried himself that reminded her achingly of Thomas. He was laughing at something one of his companions said, and the sound was rich and genuine. Martha appeared at Laura's elbow again. "That is Travis Osborne and his crew," she said quietly. "They have been driving cattle up from California, moving herds to the rail lines. Travis has been through Centralia a few times over the past year. Good man, from what I hear. Honest, hardworking, does not drink away his pay like some of them do." "I see," Laura said, not sure why Martha was telling her this. "He was asking about land in the area just last week," Martha continued. "Said he was tired of the trail, looking to settle down and start his own ranch. A man like that, well, he will be looking for a wife before long." Laura felt her cheeks heat. "Martha, please. I have had quite enough rejection for one evening." "I am just saying, some men are different from others," Martha said. "Some men have bigger hearts." Before Laura could respond, Martha was waving at the group of cowboys, beckoning them over to the refreshment table. Laura wanted to disappear, to slip out the door before she had to endure another awkward introduction, but it was too late. "Travis, boys, help yourselves to some of Mrs. Wilson's apple cake," Martha said cheerfully. "Travis, I want you to meet someone. This is Laura Ainsley. Laura, Travis Osborne." Travis turned those storm-gray eyes on Laura, and she saw him take in her worn dress, her work-roughened hands, the tired lines around her eyes. But there was no judgment in his gaze, only a kind of gentle interest. "Madam," he said, tipping his hat, "pleased to make your acquaintance." "Mr. Osborne," Laura replied, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "Travis, please," he said with a slight smile. "Mr. Osborne makes me sound like a banker, and I assure you I am nothing of the sort." "Then Laura," she offered, managing a small smile in return. Martha, bless her meddling heart, launched into Laura's history before Laura could stop her. "Laura has been in Centralia since spring. She is a widow with 4 beautiful children, and she has been looking for a fresh start. Maybe you could tell her about some of the land opportunities around here. Travis, you were just talking to my husband about acreage north of town." Laura wanted to sink through the floor. 4 beautiful children. Martha might as well have hung a sign around her neck that said, "Desperate woman with baggage." She waited for Travis's expression to close off, for the polite excuse and quick exit. But instead, he tilted his head slightly, considering. "4 children?" he asked. "That must keep you busy." "It does," Laura said quietly. "They are good children, hardworking." "How old?" Travis asked, and there was genuine curiosity in his voice, not the calculating assessment she had heard from the other men that evening. 12, 10, and 6-year-old twins, Laura said, bracing herself. Travis nodded thoughtfully. I was about 12 when my father died, left my mother with 5 of us to raise. I remember how hard she worked, how much she sacrificed. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Laura felt something loosen in her chest. I am sure she was remarkable. She would have liked you, I think, Travis said simply. It takes a special kind of strength to keep going when life knocks you down. Before Laura could respond, one of Travis's companions called him over for something, and he excused himself with another tip of his hat. Laura watched him go, feeling off balance. He had not proposed marriage, had not even expressed romantic interest, but he had also not rejected her. He had simply seen her situation, and responded with understanding rather than judgment. Martha was practically glowing. I told you, some men are different. Martha, do not read too much into a simple conversation, Laura warned, but she could not quite keep the hope out of her voice. She left the social shortly after, walking back to the boarding house under a sky brilliant with stars. For the first time in months, she felt a tiny spark of something that might have been possibility. The next morning was Sunday, and Laura took the children to church. It was a long service, and the twins fidgeted on the hard wooden pew, but Laura appreciated the hour of peace, the familiar rhythms of hymns and scripture. After the service, as people gathered outside to chat and exchange news, Laura saw Travis standing near the church steps, talking with the pastor. He was clean-shaven now, dressed in clothes that looked freshly laundered if not exactly new, and he looked every bit the respectable rancher he aspired to be. Benjamin tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, can we go? I am hungry." "In a moment," Laura said, smoothing his hair. "Why do you not take the twins over to look at the horses?" As Benjamin herded his younger brothers away, Sarah stayed close to Laura's side. "That man is looking at you," she whispered. Laura followed her daughter's gaze and felt her breath catch. Travis was indeed looking at her, and when their eyes met, he smiled and began walking over. "Mrs. Ainsley, good morning," he said. "I hope you do not mind me approaching. I wanted to apologize for cutting our conversation short last night." "There is no need to apologize," Laura said. "You were clearly needed elsewhere." "Still, it seemed rude," Travis said. He looked down at Sarah with a friendly smile. "And who is this young lady?" "This is my daughter Sarah," Laura said, putting a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Pleased to meet you, Sarah," Travis said seriously as though addressing an adult. "That is a very pretty dress." Sarah blushed and pressed closer to Laura. "Thank you, sir." "My sons are over by the horses," Laura said. "Would you like to meet them?" The offer surprised her even as she made it, but something about Travis made her want to trust him, to let him into the careful world she had built around her family. "I would be honored," Travis said. They walked over to where Benjamin stood with the twins, keeping a watchful eye on them as they admired a particularly fine sorrel mare tied to the hitching post. Benjamin's expression became guarded when he saw Travis approaching with his mother, and Laura recognized the protective instinct that had become so pronounced since Thomas's death. "Boys, this is Mr. Osborne. Travis, these are my sons. Benjamin is the eldest, and these are the twins, Michael and Matthew." Travis crouched down to the twins' level. "That is a beautiful horse, is it not? Do you boys like horses?" "Yes, sir," Matthew said enthusiastically, while Michael nodded vigorously. "Have you ever ridden one?" Travis asked. The twins shook their heads, their eyes wide. Travis glanced up at Laura, a question in his expression. "Would it be all right if I let them sit on my horse for a moment, just sitting with me holding them steady?" Laura hesitated, but the hope in her sons' faces made the decision for her. "If you are certain it is safe." "As safe as houses," Travis assured her. He stood and untied the sorrel mare, leading her to a mounting block nearby. "This is Copper. She is the gentlest horse I have ever owned. Used to give my nieces and nephews rides back in California." He lifted Matthew first, settling him in the saddle and holding him securely while the boy's face lit up with pure joy. Michael went next, equally delighted. Even Benjamin, despite his teenage attempt at aloofness, could not quite hide his interest. "Have you been working horses long?" Benjamin asked Travis, trying to sound casual. "Since I was younger than you," Travis replied. "Started as a stable boy on a ranch in California when I was 10. Worked my way up to trail boss over the years." "That must be exciting work," Benjamin said, a wistful note in his voice. "It has its moments," Travis agreed. "But it is also hard and lonely. You spend months on the trail, sleeping on the ground, eating beans and hardtack, never staying in one place long enough to call it home. I am ready for something different now. Ready to put down roots." Laura listened to this exchange with growing interest. Travis had a natural way with her children, neither condescending nor overly familiar. He treated them with respect, and they responded to it. After the twins had their fill of sitting on Copper, Travis lifted them down and turned to Laura. "Mrs. Ainsley, I wonder if I might be so bold as to ask if you and your family would join me for lunch. There is a restaurant in town that serves a decent Sunday meal, and I would enjoy the company." Laura's first instinct was to refuse. She could not afford such luxuries, and she did not want to seem like a charity case. But the hopeful expressions on her children's faces stopped her. When was the last time they had eaten a meal they had not cooked themselves in a cramped boarding house room? "That is very kind of you," she said carefully, "but I could not possibly let you pay for all 5 of us." "I would not have offered if I did not mean it," Travis said simply. "Please, I have been eating trail food for 3 months. The chance to share a proper meal with pleasant company would be doing me the favor." So Laura found herself sitting in the restaurant with her children, watching Travis charm them with stories about cattle drives and wild horses and the vast open spaces of California and Oregon. He had a gift for storytelling, making even the hardships sound like adventures, and her children hung on his every word. Even Benjamin, so suspicious of strangers lately, began to relax. Over roasted chicken and fresh bread, Travis asked the children about their lives, about school and their interests and their dreams. He listened with genuine attention when Michael talked about the insects he liked to collect, and when Sarah mentioned she liked to read, he promised to lend her some books he had packed in his saddlebags. "You carry books on cattle drives?" Laura asked, surprised. "Always," Travis said. "My mother taught me to read when I was young, and she always said books were windows to worlds we might never see otherwise. I might spend my days with cattle and dust, but at night I can be anywhere." Laura found herself watching the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle patience in his hands as he helped Matthew cut his chicken. There was something deeply appealing about him, something that went beyond his handsome features and solid build. He radiated a kind of steadiness, a reliability that she had not realized she was craving until this moment. After lunch, as they walked back toward the boarding house, Travis fell into step beside Laura while the children ran ahead. "Your children are wonderful," he said quietly. "You have done an excellent job with them." "I have tried," Laura replied. "It has not been easy." "The best things rarely are," Travis said. He hesitated, then added, "Mrs. Ainsley, Laura, I hope you do not think me too forward, but I would very much like to see you again, to see all of you again. I am going to be in town for at least another week, maybe 2, settling some business and looking at property. It would make me happy to spend some of that time getting to know you better." Laura's heart began to beat faster. "Mr. Osborne, Travis, I need to be honest with you." I am not in a position to play games or engage in casual courtship. My children and we are in a difficult situation. I am nearly out of money and the boarding house is only temporary. I have been turned down for work, for loans, for housing, because I am a woman alone with 4 children. If you are looking for some pleasant companionship while you are in town, I am not the right person. Travis stopped walking and turned to face her fully. His expression was serious, thoughtful. I appreciate your honesty. Let me be equally honest with you. I am 32 years old. I have spent the last 15 years moving from place to place, never settling, never building anything lasting. I have money saved, enough to buy land and start a ranch, but I have been hesitating because I did not want to do it alone. When Martha introduced us last night, when she told me about your situation, my first thought was not pity. It was recognition. Recognition? Laura asked, hardly daring to hope. You need someone to help you build a life for your family. I need a family to build a life around, Travis said simply. Now, I am not proposing marriage to you right here on the street after knowing you less than a day. That would be foolish for both of us. But I am proposing that we spend time together, honest time, with the explicit understanding that we are both looking for the same thing. A partnership. A real family. And if, after getting to know each other, we find that we suit, then we can talk about making it permanent. Laura felt tears prick her eyes. You would really consider taking on 4 children who are not your own? Laura, I grew up in a family of 5 children, Travis said gently. My best memories are of a crowded table, of noise and laughter and mess and chaos. The idea of a ready-made family does not scare me. It appeals to me. And your children, they are good kids. I can see that already. It would be my privilege to help raise them, to give them opportunities, to watch them grow. I do not know what to say, Laura whispered. Say you will give me a chance, Travis replied. Give us a chance. Laura looked ahead to where her children were playing a game of tag on the dusty street, their laughter carrying back to her on the autumn breeze. She thought about the rejections, the closed doors, the pitying looks. And then she thought about the way Travis had looked at her children with genuine interest and kindness, the way he had spoken about partnership rather than rescue, the way he had been honest about his own needs rather than positioning himself as a savior. Yes, she said. Yes, I will give us a chance. Travis's smile was like sunrise. Then how about we start with a walk tomorrow afternoon? I could show you the property I am considering north of town. Bring the children if you like, or we could arrange for them to stay with someone if you would prefer time to talk alone. They should come, Laura said firmly. This affects them too. They should be part of the decision. I completely agree, Travis said. True to his word, Travis arrived at the boarding house the next afternoon with his horse and a rented wagon large enough for the whole family. The children scrambled into the back with excitement while Laura sat on the bench beside Travis, very aware of his presence, of the strength in his hands as he handled the reins. They drove north out of Centralia, following a road that wound through stands of massive Douglas fir and cedar. The timber here was stunning, the trees rising like cathedral columns toward the sky. Travis talked as he drove, pointing out landmarks and sharing his vision for the ranch he wanted to build. There is good grazing land just past this next ridge, he explained. A creek runs through it year-round, never runs dry even in summer. The land has been surveyed and is available for purchase at a reasonable price. It is enough acreage to support a good-sized herd of cattle with room to expand. They crested the ridge, and Laura caught her breath at the view. A wide valley spread out before them, lush with grass and dotted with groves of trees. The creek Travis had mentioned sparkled in the afternoon sun, and in the distance, the Cascade Mountains rose like snow-capped guardians. It was beautiful, peaceful, full of possibility. What do you think? Travis asked, watching her face. It is perfect, Laura said honestly. Anyone would be lucky to build a home here. What about you? Travis asked quietly. Could you see yourself being happy here? Laura looked at the land, imagining a house nestled near the creek, a barn for animals, fields for crops. She imagined her children running through the grass, climbing the trees, growing up with space and freedom and security. She imagined herself working beside Travis, building something lasting, something real. Yes, she said, I could be happy here. They spent the afternoon exploring the property, Travis lifting the twins over fallen logs and pointing out animal tracks in the soft earth near the creek. Benjamin peppered him with questions about ranching and cattle, and Travis answered each one seriously, treating the boy as an equal. Sarah found wildflowers growing near the water and brought them to Laura, her face glowing with a happiness Laura had not seen in months. As the sun began to sink toward the mountains, they made their way back to the wagon. Travis helped Laura up to the bench, his hand warm and steady on hers, and for a moment their eyes met and held. Something passed between them, an understanding, a promise. The week that followed established a pattern. Travis came by each afternoon, sometimes taking the whole family on outings, sometimes just sitting with Laura on the boarding house porch while the children played nearby. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their hopes, their fears, their dreams for the future. Travis told her about growing up in California, about his father's death when he was 12, and how his mother had held the family together through sheer force of will. She cleaned houses, took in laundry, did whatever she could to keep us fed, he said. And she never once complained, never made us feel like we were a burden. When I was 16, I started working full-time on the ranches, sending money home. My brothers and sisters, they all made good lives for themselves eventually. My mother got to see that before she passed 2 years ago. She must have been so proud of you, Laura said softly. I hope so, Travis replied, but I always felt like I owed her more. Like I should have done more to make her life easier. You were a child, Laura said. You did what you could. So are your children, Travis pointed out gently. And you are doing what you can. Do not let anyone make you feel like that is not enough. Laura found herself opening up to him in ways she had not anticipated, telling him about her marriage to Thomas, about the dreams they had shared and how hard it had been to watch him die, helpless to save him. We were going to build a farm, raise our children in the fresh air, away from the crowded cities, she said. Thomas was a good man, a kind man. He worked himself to exhaustion trying to make it happen, and I think that is part of what made him susceptible to the pneumonia. His body was just too worn down to fight it. I am sorry you lost him, Travis said, and I am not trying to replace him. I know I could not, but I hope in time I can be my own kind of partner to you. You already are, Laura said, surprising herself with the truth of it. By the end of the second week, Laura knew with certainty that she was falling in love with Travis Osborne. It was not the wild, passionate love of her youth, but something deeper, steadier, built on respect and understanding and shared goals. She loved the way he made her children laugh, the way he listened when she talked, the way he never made her feel less than because of her circumstances. And she could see, in the way he looked at her, that his feelings were growing too. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains, Travis reached for her hand. It was the first time he had touched her beyond helping her in and out of wagons, and the contact sent warmth flooding through her. Laura, I need to leave tomorrow, he said quietly. I have to go down to Portland to finalize the purchase of the land and arrange for the transport of my belongings from California. Laura felt her heart sink. How long will you be gone? 2 weeks, maybe 3, Travis said, "but I want you to know I am coming back. And when I do, I want to marry you if you will have me." Laura's breath caught. "Travis, are you certain? We have only known each other 2 weeks." "I have never been more certain of anything in my life," Travis said, turning to face her fully. "I know what I want, Laura. I want you. I want your children. I want to build a life with all of you on that land we looked at. I want to wake up every morning knowing I am working for something bigger than myself, for a family, for a future. And I hope you want that too." Tears spilled down Laura's cheeks. "I do want that. I want it so much it terrifies me." "Then say yes," Travis said softly. "Say you will marry me when I get back." "Yes," Laura whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Travis leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Laura did not pull away. His kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promise. When they broke apart, Laura was smiling through her tears. "I have to ask the children," she said. "This affects them too." "Of course," Travis agreed. "Would you like me to be there when you do?" "Yes," Laura said. "They should hear it from both of us." They gathered the children in the small boarding house room that evening. Benjamin, Sarah, Michael, and Matthew sat on the beds, looking between Laura and Travis with curious expressions. "Children, Travis and I have something important to tell you," Laura began. "Travis has asked me to marry him, and I have said yes. But before we make it official, we want to know how you feel about it." There was a moment of silence. Then Matthew burst out. "Does that mean Travis will be our new papa?" "If you want me to be," Travis said gently. "I could never replace your real father, and I would never try. But I would be honored to be a father figure to you, to help your mother raise you and take care of you." "Would we live on that land we saw?" Sarah asked. "With the creek and the mountains?" "Yes," Travis said. "I am going to build a house there, a big house with room for everyone. Each of you would have your own space, and there would be land to explore and animals to care for and all the things a growing family needs." "I think it is a good idea," Sarah said decisively. "Travis is kind, and Mama has been happier these past 2 weeks than I have seen her in a long time." "Benjamin," Laura asked, looking at her eldest son, "you have been very quiet. What do you think?" Benjamin was staring at his hands, his jaw tight. When he finally looked up, his eyes were shining with unshed tears. "I know we need help, Mama. I know I cannot take care of everyone on my own, no matter how hard I try. And Travis seems like a good man. But Papa—" Travis moved to sit beside Benjamin, not touching him but close enough to offer comfort. "Your Papa was a good man, from everything your mother has told me. He loved you all very much, and he worked hard to give you a good life. I respect that, and I respect him. I am not trying to make you forget him or replace him in your hearts, but I would like to honor his memory by taking care of the family he loved so much. Would that be all right with you?" Benjamin wiped his eyes roughly. "You promise you will be good to them, to all of them?" "I promise," Travis said solemnly. "You have my word, Benjamin. And if I ever break that word, you have my permission to hold me accountable." Benjamin nodded slowly, then more firmly. "Then I think you should marry Mama. We need you." The twins cheered, and Sarah hugged Laura tightly. Travis gathered them all into an awkward, wonderful group embrace, and Laura felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope for the future, solid and real and within reach. Travis left the next morning on the stagecoach to Portland. Laura and the children stood outside the station to see him off, and he kissed Laura's cheek gently before boarding. 3 weeks, he promised, and then we start our life together. Those 3 weeks were the longest of Laura's life. She threw herself into preparations, making clothes for the children and herself for the wedding, carefully managing what little money she had left. Martha Crawford, who had become a true friend, helped her plan a simple ceremony at the church. The whole town seemed excited about the upcoming marriage. And Laura realized that people had been rooting for her all along, even when doors had closed. Letters arrived from Travis every few days, detailing his progress in Portland and his growing excitement about their future. He had purchased the land, he wrote, and hired a crew to begin work on the house. He had sent for his belongings from California, including furniture and household goods that would help them start their life together. He described the cattle he was purchasing, the plans he had for the ranch, the dreams he was building around their family. Laura read these letters aloud to the children each night, and they would crowd around her, adding their own ideas and questions to relay in her responses. Benjamin wanted to know about the cattle and the work of ranching. Sarah wanted to know if there would be room for a garden and chickens. The twins wanted to know if they could have a dog. "Tell Travis we need a dog," Matthew insisted. "A big dog," Michael added, "to protect the cattle from wolves." Laura laughed and promised to include their request. 3 weeks to the day after Travis left, Laura was helping the twins with their arithmetic when there was a knock at the boarding house door. She opened it to find Travis standing there, dusty from travel but grinning widely. "You are back," she breathed, and then she was in his arms, propriety forgotten, just grateful to have him there and real and solid. "I am back," he confirmed, holding her tight, "and I brought something to show you." He led her and the children outside to where a wagon was parked, loaded with lumber and supplies. But that was not what made Laura gasp. Tied to the back of the wagon was a large dog, some mix of shepherd and hound, with intelligent brown eyes and a wagging tail. "You got us a dog." The twins shrieked, racing toward the animal. "His name is Scout," Travis said, untying the dog and letting him greet the excited children. "He is trained to work with livestock, but he is also gentle with children. I thought he could be part of the family." "Travis Osborne, you are going to spoil them," Laura said, but she was laughing. "That is the plan," Travis replied, pulling her close. "Now, how do you feel about getting married in 3 days? The house is not finished yet, but there is enough completed that we can move in. The barn is done, and I have temporary quarters set up for us while the work continues. It is not fancy, but it is ours." 3 days, Laura repeated, her heart racing. "Unless you want to wait longer," Travis said. "But I have to tell you, Laura, I have been counting the hours until I could make you my wife. If 3 days feels too soon, I will wait. But not because I have any doubts. I have none." "Neither do I," Laura said. 3 days is perfect." The wedding took place on a crisp October morning in the Centralia church. Laura wore a simple dress of cream-colored cotton that Martha had helped her make, with wildflowers in her hair that Sarah had gathered. Travis wore his best suit, looking nervous and happy in equal measure. The children stood with them at the altar, part of the ceremony, part of the promise being made. When the pastor asked if anyone objected to the union, Laura held her breath. But there was only supportive silence and a few joyful tears from the congregation. And when Travis slipped a simple gold band on her finger and promised to love and cherish her and her children for all his days, Laura knew she had found something rare and precious. A second chance, a new beginning, a partner who saw her family not as a burden but as a gift. They moved to the ranch the next day, the children exploring every inch of the property with Scout bounding along beside them. The house was still under construction, but the main living areas were finished. A large kitchen with a wood stove, a spacious common room with a fireplace, and several bedrooms. It was more space than the children had ever had, and they reveled in it. That first night, after the children were asleep in their new rooms, Laura and Travis sat together on the porch of their new home, watching the stars emerge over the mountains. "Are you happy?" Travis asked softly, his arm around her shoulders. "Happier than I have any right to be," Laura replied, leaning into him. You have every right, Travis said firmly. You have worked for this happiness, earned it with every hard day and difficult decision. You deserve this, Laura, you and the children both. Laura turned to look at her husband, this good man who had seen past her circumstances to the person underneath, who had opened his heart and his life to include her and her children without reservation. I love you, she said, the words coming easily. I did not think I would ever say those words again after Thomas, but I love you, Travis Osborne. I love you too, Travis replied, his voice rough with emotion. I have loved you from the moment you looked at me at that social with such fierce pride despite everything you were going through. You are the strongest woman I have ever known, and I count myself the luckiest man alive that you chose me. He kissed her then, deep and tender, and Laura felt the last of her defenses crumble. This was real. This was lasting. This was home. The weeks that followed were full of hard work and adjustment. Travis taught Benjamin the basics of cattle ranching, and the boy thrived under the attention and responsibility. Sarah helped Laura establish a household, learning to cook on the big range and tend the chickens Travis had purchased. The twins were given the job of caring for Scout and collecting eggs, tasks they took very seriously. Laura found joy in the simple rhythms of ranch life, preparing meals for her family, mending clothes by the fire, working in the garden plot she and Sarah had started. But more than that, she found joy in the partnership with Travis. He consulted her on every major decision, valued her opinions, and shared both the work and the rewards equally. In November, Travis took Benjamin on his first cattle drive, just a short trip to move some livestock to winter pasture. When they returned 3 days later, Benjamin was sunburned and exhausted and glowing with pride. Mama, I helped herd over 50 head of cattle, he told Laura excitedly. Travis says I am a natural. He is, Travis confirmed, ruffling Benjamin's hair affectionately. Give him a few more years, and he will be as good a ranch hand as anyone I have worked with. Laura watched her son beam under Travis's praise and felt her heart swell with gratitude. Travis was keeping his promise, giving her children not just security but also purpose and confidence. As winter settled over the ranch, the family grew closer. They gathered around the fireplace in the evenings, Travis reading aloud from his collection of books while Laura mended, and the children listened raptly. He taught them songs from his trail days, taught the twins to play simple card games, helped Sarah with her more advanced reading. And late at night, when the children were asleep, Travis would hold Laura close and they would talk about their dreams for the future. More cattle, maybe some horses. Expanding the house once the current work was finished, the possibility of more children if they were blessed with them. Would you want that? Laura asked one night. More children, you already have 4. I would love that, Travis said honestly, but only if you wanted to. I know childbearing is not easy and you have already done it 4 times. I would like to have your child, Laura admitted, a child that is ours together from the beginning. Then we will hope for that blessing, Travis said, kissing her forehead. But if it does not happen, I want you to know I am completely happy with our family as it is. Benjamin, Sarah, Michael, and Matthew, they are not just your children anymore, they are ours. I love them as if they were my own blood. Tears filled Laura's eyes. They love you too. Sarah told me the other day that she feels like we are a complete family now, like all the broken pieces have been put back together. Wise girl, Travis murmured. Christmas came, and Travis surprised the family with gifts he had been secretly working on or saving for. There was a new saddle for Benjamin, properly sized for a growing boy. A set of books for Sarah, including some poetry collections Laura knew must have cost dearly. Toy horses carved from wood for the twins, each one unique and detailed. And for Laura, a beautiful shawl in deep blue wool that he had commissioned from a weaver in Portland. "Travis, this is too much," Laura protested, even as she wrapped the soft wool around her shoulders. "It is not enough," Travis replied. "I want to give you the world, Laura. This is just a start." They celebrated simply but joyfully, with a large meal and songs around the piano Travis had brought from California. Looking around at her children's happy faces, at her husband playing carols while everyone sang, Laura felt a peace she had not known was possible. In February, Laura realized she was pregnant. She told Travis one evening after the children were in bed, nervous about his reaction despite his earlier assurances. "Are you certain?" he asked, his eyes wide. "As certain as I can be," Laura replied. "How do you feel about it?" Travis let out a whoop of joy and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around before setting her down gently. "How do I feel? Laura, I am ecstatic. We are going to have a baby, our baby." "You are really happy?" Laura asked, laughing at his enthusiasm. "I am beyond happy," Travis said, placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "This is everything I wanted. A family, a home, a future, and now a child to share it all with." They told the children the next morning at breakfast. The twins were excited, if a bit confused about the details. Sarah was thrilled at the prospect of a baby to help care for. Benjamin, now 13 and increasingly aware of the complexities of adult relationships, studied them both carefully before nodding his approval. "A baby brother or sister," he said. "That will be good. You are all right with this?" Laura asked him privately later. "I am," Benjamin said. "At first, when you married Travis, I was worried things would change, that maybe he would not want us around once he had his own kids, but he is not like that. He treats us like we are really his, and I do not think a new baby will change that." "It would not," Laura assured him. "You four are his children now, just as much as this baby will be. He loves you all." "I know," Benjamin said, and the trust in his eyes made Laura's throat tight with emotion. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, Laura's body remembering the familiar rhythms despite the years since her last child. Travis was attentive to the point of being overprotective, trying to take over all her household tasks, until Laura firmly told him she was pregnant, not incapacitated. "I carried and delivered 4 healthy babies while doing far more work than I am doing now," she reminded him. "I am fine, Travis. Let me live my life." "I just want to take care of you," Travis protested. "You do take care of me," Laura said gently. "Every single day. But I also need to feel useful and capable. Find the balance with me, all right." Travis nodded, chastened, and they worked out a compromise. Laura continued with her normal routines but accepted help when it was offered and did not push herself to exhaustion. In early summer, Travis hired additional ranch hands to help with the expanding cattle operation. 2 cowboys, both young and hardworking, joined the household and took meals with the family. Laura found she enjoyed the bustle of a fuller house, the conversations around the dinner table, the sense of a thriving enterprise. The ranch was prospering. Travis had a good eye for cattle and a reputation for fair dealing that brought buyers from across the territory. They sold beef to the logging camps, to the towns along the rail lines, to the army posts scattered throughout Washington territory. The money coming in allowed for improvements, completing the house additions, building a larger barn, purchasing better equipment. But Travis never lost sight of what mattered most. No matter how busy he was, he always made time for the children, for Laura, for the family life they were building together. He attended Sarah's school recitations, helped Benjamin learn advanced riding techniques, played endless games with the twins, and sat with Laura in the evenings, talking about their days and their dreams. In September, a year after they had first met, Laura went into labor. Travis sent Benjamin for the midwife and then paced the house like a caged animal, far more nervous than Laura herself. "You have done this 4 times," he kept saying. "You know what you are doing." "I do," Laura agreed between contractions. "But this is your first, so you are allowed to be nervous." The labor was long but uncomplicated, and as dawn broke over the Cascade Mountains, Laura delivered a healthy baby boy. Travis was at her side, having refused to be banished from the room despite the midwife's protests, and when he held his son for the first time, tears streamed down his weathered face. "He is perfect," Travis whispered. "Laura, he is absolutely perfect. What should we name him?" Laura asked, exhausted but happy. They had discussed names but had not made a final decision. Travis looked down at the tiny face of his son, then at Laura. "Thomas," he said, "if that would be all right with you. After your first husband, the father of your other children. He should be remembered and honored as part of this family." Laura began to cry. "Are you certain? You want to name our son after another man?" "I want to name our son after a good man who loved you and gave you 4 wonderful children," Travis said firmly. "Thomas Osborne, it is a strong name." "Thomas Osborne," Laura repeated, testing it. "Yes, that is perfect." The children were allowed in to meet their new brother, and they crowded around the bed with awe and excitement. Even Benjamin, who had tried to maintain his teenage aloofness, could not resist the appeal of the tiny baby. "He is so small," Sarah breathed, gently touching the baby's hand. "You were all this small once," Laura told them, "and Thomas will grow just like you did." "Will he call Travis Papa?" Matthew asked. "He will," Travis confirmed. "Just like you all do, because that is what I am. I am Papa to all of you." The words were simple, but they carried weight. The twins had naturally started calling Travis Papa within weeks of the wedding. Sarah had taken longer, tentatively testing the word until she was comfortable with it. Benjamin still called him Travis most of the time, though Laura had heard him slip and say Papa once or twice when he was excited or frightened. But the claim Travis was making now was absolute. He was their father, all of them, by choice and by love if not by blood. As the months passed and baby Thomas grew, the family settled into new routines. Laura juggled caring for an infant with managing a busy household, but she was not alone in the work. Travis helped with nighttime feedings, walking the floor with his son when the baby was fussy. Sarah became a devoted helper, learning to change diapers and prepare bottles. Even the twins tried to help, bringing blankets and toys to entertain their baby brother. Benjamin, now 14, was taking on more responsibility with the ranch work. Travis had started teaching him bookkeeping and business management, recognizing that the boy had a sharp mind for numbers and planning. "Benjamin is going to be running this place someday," Travis told Laura proudly. "He has the head for it and the heart for it. We are building something that will last beyond us, something we can pass down to him and the others." "Do you think they will all want to stay?" Laura asked. "Work the ranch?" "I do not know," Travis admitted, "and that is all right. Benjamin seems interested, but Sarah might want something different. The twins are too young to know yet. And Thomas, well, he will grow up with choices. That is what I want for all of them. The freedom to choose their own paths with the security of knowing they always have a home here." In the second year of their marriage, the ranch continued to grow. Travis purchased more land, expanding their holdings. They built a proper schoolhouse on the property and hired a teacher, both for their own children and for the children of the ranch hands. Laura found herself becoming the heart of a small community, hosting dinners and gatherings, offering advice and assistance to the younger families working the ranch. One evening, as they celebrated Thomas's first birthday with cake and songs, Laura looked around the crowded table and felt overwhelming gratitude. Benjamin was laughing at something one of the ranch hands had said. Sarah was holding baby Thomas on her lap, helping him clap along to the music. The twins were competing to see who could eat their cake faster. And Travis, her husband, her partner, her love, was watching them all with such open affection that it made her heart ache. Later, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, Laura and Travis walked out to look at the stars, a habit they had maintained from their very first days together. "You remember the night I proposed?" Travis asked, his arm around her waist. "On the boarding house porch." "Of course I remember," Laura said. "I remember thinking you were either crazy or the most wonderful man I had ever met." "And what is your conclusion now?" Travis teased. "Both," Laura replied, laughing. "Definitely both." "I have never regretted that decision," Travis said seriously. "Not for one moment. You and the children, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave me purpose, Laura. You gave me a reason to build something lasting." "You gave me hope when I had none left," Laura replied. "You saw me when I felt invisible. You looked at my children and saw a blessing instead of a burden. I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for that." "Do not be grateful," Travis said, turning to face her. "I did not do you some favor by marrying you. You did me one by saying yes. I got the better end of this deal, believe me." "We both won," Laura said firmly. "That is what a good marriage is. Two people both feeling lucky to have found each other." They stood together in the darkness, the sounds of the ranch settling around them, the lowing of cattle in the distance, the whisper of wind through the pines, the chirping of crickets in the grass. It was peaceful, complete, everything Laura had ever dreamed of and more. As the years continued to pass, the family grew and changed. Benjamin became a full partner in the ranch operations by the time he was 18, showing the same dedication and wisdom that Travis had modeled. Sarah surprised everyone by developing a passion for teaching and went off to normal school in Portland to get her certification, with plans to return and take over the school on the ranch. The twins, now young men, were developing their own interests. Michael in animal husbandry and breeding, Matthew in the business side of ranching. Thomas grew up surrounded by siblings who doted on him, learning to ride before he could barely walk, absorbing the lessons of ranch life as naturally as breathing. And in the years that followed his birth, Laura and Travis were blessed with two more children, a daughter they named Grace, and another son they called Samuel. The house Travis had built expanded to accommodate the growing family, rooms added as needed, love expanding to fill every corner. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Travis took Laura back to the spot where he had first shown her the land, the place where she had dared to believe in the possibility of happiness again. "You remember standing here?" he asked, holding both her hands. "I remember everything about that day," Laura said. "I remember thinking it was beautiful but not daring to hope it could really be mine." "Ours," Travis corrected. "It was always meant to be ours. And look what we have built, Laura, not just a ranch but a legacy. Our children are thriving, happy, secure. We have created something good here, something that will outlast us." "We have," Laura agreed, looking up at the man who had changed everything. Gray was starting to touch his dark hair, and lines had deepened around his eyes, but to her, he was as handsome as the day she had met him. More so, because now she knew the depths of his character, the steadiness of his love, the generosity of his spirit. "I love you," she said simply. "Today, tomorrow, always." "And I love you," Travis replied. "You and every child in our home, whether they came from your first marriage or from ours. You are my family, my purpose, my joy." He kissed her there in the meadow where it had all begun. A kiss full of history and promise, and the deep comfort of a love that had been tested and proven true. And as they walked back toward the house hand in hand, Laura thought about how close she had come to giving up, how many times she had been rejected and turned away. She thought about the desperation that had driven her to that social where she had met Travis, about the pitying looks and closed doors. And she thanked God for every rejection, every closed door, every hardship that had led her to this moment. Because all of it, every difficult step, had been worth it to find a man who had looked at her widow's weeds and her 4 children and said, with perfect sincerity and no hesitation, "I have got room for 5." That night, as the family gathered for dinner around the long table Travis had built with his own hands, Laura looked at each beloved face. Benjamin, now a man himself with a sweetheart in town he was courting. Sarah, home from normal school for the summer and full of plans for improving education on the ranch. Michael and Matthew, 16 now and growing into their own identities while remaining close as only twins can be. Thomas, turning 9 and showing signs of his father's steady temperament. Grace, a precocious 7-year-old who kept everyone on their toes. And Samuel, just 4, the baby of the family with his father's gray eyes and his mother's determination. And of course, Travis, her husband, her partner, the father of her children and the love of her life. "What are you thinking about?" Travis asked quietly, noticing her reflection. "Gratitude," Laura replied simply. "I am thinking about how grateful I am for all of this, for you, for our family, for the life we have built together." "It is a good life," Travis agreed. "The best I could have imagined." After dinner, as was their custom, the family gathered in the large common room. Sarah played the piano while the others sang, old hymns and folk songs, and the silly tunes the children had made up over the years. Baby Samuel fell asleep in Laura's lap, his small warm weight a comfortable presence. Grace and Thomas sprawled on the rug with a picture book. The twins challenged their father to a game of chess, which he accepted with mock solemnity. Benjamin sat beside Laura, no longer the defensive boy guarding his grieving mother but a confident young man secure in his place in the world. "Mama, do you ever think about how different things could have been?" he asked quietly. "What do you mean?" Laura asked, though she thought she knew. "If Travis had not come along, if no one had wanted to take on all of us, what would have happened to us?" Laura was quiet for a moment, thinking about the dwindling savings, the desperation, the very real possibility that she might have had to split up the children, sending them to different relatives or orphanages just to ensure their survival. "I think about it sometimes," she admitted. "But I try not to dwell on it. We got lucky, Benjamin. We found exactly the right person at exactly the right time. Your father, your first father, always said that sometimes the hardest moments in life are what lead us to where we are meant to be. I think he was right." "I am glad Travis came along," Benjamin said. "I know I was resistant at first, but he has been good to us, better than good. He has been a real father." "He loves you very much," Laura said, squeezing her son's hand. "All of you, never doubt that." "I do not doubt it," Benjamin assured her. "Not anymore." That night, after all the children were finally settled in their beds, Laura and Travis had their usual few minutes of quiet time together. They sat on their porch, wrapped in blankets against the autumn chill, watching the stars. "Benjamin said something interesting tonight," Laura mentioned, relaying the conversation. Travis was quiet for a long moment. "I worry sometimes," he finally said, "that I have not done enough, or that the older children especially might feel like I am trying to replace their father. I never wanted that." "You have not replaced Thomas," Laura said firmly. "You have honored him by caring for his children, by helping them grow into good people. And they know that. They all know that. You are not trying to erase their past. You are part of their present and their future." "I hope they always feel that way," Travis said. They will, Laura assured him. Because you show them every single day through your actions. You are steady, Travis. You are constant. That is what they need, what we all need. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from years of deep companionship. Laura thought about the journey that had brought her here, from that dusty street in Centralia, where she had felt so rejected and alone, to this porch, this home, this life full of love and security. "Travis," she said softly, "I need you to know something." "What is that?" he asked, turning to her. "When you asked me to marry you, when you said you had room for 5, I thought you were being generous, noble, doing the right thing because you are a good man. But I understand now that I was wrong." "Wrong how?" Travis asked, puzzled. "You were not being generous," Laura said. "You were being honest. You really did have room for 5 for all of us in your heart and in your life. It was not a sacrifice or a burden. It was what you genuinely wanted. And that makes all the difference." Travis smiled, that warm smile that still made her heart flutter even after 10 years. "You are right. I did want it. I wanted all of you, and I want you still every day. You and every member of our wild, noisy, wonderful family. Even when the twins accidentally let the chickens loose in the house," Laura teased, referencing an incident from last month that had resulted in absolute chaos. "Even then," Travis laughed, "though I could have done without finding chicken feathers in my boots for a week afterward." They laughed together, the sound carrying out into the night, and Laura felt a completeness she had never expected to find again after Thomas's death. She had been so certain that her chance at happiness had died with him, that the best she could hope for was survival. But life had surprised her. Travis had surprised her. And together, they had built something beautiful from the broken pieces. The years continued to roll forward, bringing changes and challenges as all years do. There were hard winters and dry summers, sick cattle and broken equipment, all the trials that came with ranch life. But through it all, the family remained strong, bound together by love and mutual support. Benjamin married his sweetheart, a bright young woman named Elizabeth, and they built a house on the ranch property. Their first child, a daughter, was born in the spring, making Laura and Travis grandparents. Sarah completed her education and returned to take over the ranch school, her teaching inspiring a new generation of children. The twins remained on the ranch, Michael developing a breeding program that became known throughout the territory. Matthew handling more and more of the business operations as Travis began to step back. Thomas, Grace, and Samuel grew up in a household full of love and stability, never knowing the desperation and fear that had marked their older siblings' early years. They had their own challenges and triumphs, their own paths to forge, but they did so with the confidence that came from being deeply loved and supported. And through it all, Laura and Travis remained the steady center, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They aged together, their love deepening and maturing, becoming something rich and unshakable. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled the house, the noise level reaching chaotic heights, and Laura looked around with satisfaction. This was what she had fought for in those dark days after Thomas's death. This security, this love, this future for her children. "Penny, for your thoughts," Travis murmured in her ear as they stood watching the controlled chaos of the celebration. "I was just thinking about how far we have come," Laura said. "About the woman I was 25 years ago, standing outside that land office in Centralia, feeling like the world had no place for me." "The world had plenty of place for you," Travis said firmly. "Those fools just could not see it, but their loss was my gain." "Definitely your loss," Laura teased, gesturing at the mess around them. Look at what you got yourself into. Best decision I ever made, Travis said, pulling her close. I meant what I said all those years ago, Laura. I had room for 5. Room in my heart, room in my life, room in my future. And you and the children filled all that room and more. You made me complete. Laura leaned against her husband, this good man who had given her and her children everything, and felt tears of joy sting her eyes. You made us complete too, she whispered. You gave us a home, Travis. Not just a house, but a real home where we belonged. We gave each other a home, Travis corrected. That is what family is. That is what love is, making a place where everyone belongs. As the celebration continued around them, as their children and grandchildren laughed and played and filled the house with life, Laura thought about the unlikely path that had led her here. She thought about rejection and desperation transformed into hope and love. She thought about the power of a good man's willingness to see beyond circumstances to the person underneath. She thought about second chances and new beginnings, and the beautiful, complicated miracle of blended families. And most of all, she thought about the simple truth that had changed everything. Sometimes, when you feel most rejected and alone, the right person is just around the corner, ready to say the words you most need to hear. Words like, "I've got room for 5." Those words had been the beginning of everything good in Laura's life. They had opened a door when all others had closed. They had offered hope when hope seemed lost. And they had proven true, day after day, year after year, as Travis had indeed made room not just for 5, but for all the love and life and family that had grown from that initial promise. As the sun set over the Cascade Mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Laura stood with Travis's arm around her and her family surrounding her, and knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The widow with 4 children had been rejected by many, but she had been chosen by the one who mattered, and that had made all the difference.